we have very little time, so I will not have too many questions to you. I thought this is a session where we have to ask questions. Rajeevji, I liked your book. I have already spoken positive about it, but now I want to turn negative against the book. One question I have to you is the following. I completely agree with you that one has to do the Purva Paksha of the other person whom you are trying to understand. How can one of your readers do a Purva Paksha of you and appreciate that what all that you have written is actually correct?
So, thank you for the comments, wonderful comments, and I'll answer the questions. So, to answer your question first, hers is a deeper question I want to address because it's a very good question, very important question. Yours is a very important question. How can others do Purva Paksha of me? Well, Allah didn't teach me how to do Purva Paksha of him. I figured it on my own. So you guys want to do Purva Paksha of me, you figure it on your own. But in the spirit of things, let me advise you how you should do Purva Paksha. The 50 scholars who've already written these 3 volumes, and there'll be many more because we'll have 8 volumes, have been asked to do their own independent study of Pollack. Not just quote me, but go directly to his sources and see for themselves, because they're putting their name on the line, their career is at stake. These are published books, peer-reviewed books. They're going to be in the mainstream, and we are going to try and introduce them into the traditional Sanskrit scholars curriculum. So when people are studying Sanskrit in this country, they should also study the Purva Paksha of the other kind of Sanskrit interpretation. This should be part of Sanskrit studies. And so in order to, for a scholar, for a young scholar or an experienced scholar to put their paper into these books, which are then going to be given away very widely, they have to make sure what they are saying is they can stand behind it and they can defend it. So the first level of Purva Paksha or validation of what I am doing is that we now have 50 scholars who have reached these conclusions independently on their own. So that is I think a very, I don't know if there are too many instances in the past, at least in the past generation or two, where one Indian has taken on a mighty Western school of thought, done it very openly, explicitly in 500 or 600 pages, and done all kind of references and here and there and evidence, and then trained a large army of Indian students, Indian scholars, to independently go and verify it and publish papers in their own name and stick their neck out and give talks. I think this in itself is something of a new phenomenon that we are facing.
Thank you very much. And the reason why I particularly ask this question is the following. The need or the essence for Purva Paksha that you now speak about in the context of our culture seems to be true even in science also. Believe me, all of you believe me, that even today, if you want to now get a respectability in the publication of a paper, our own scientists demand that you should publish outside and not in the Indian journal. Many of our own scientists lose their awards or their appreciation if they publish the same paper in India rather than publishing it outside. And this is the kind of situation we are in. And in fact, the reason why I asked this question is that it appears that even in science we need to now do a Purva Paksha of what is going on of this whole canvas of science in the West and in the India. And so my question to you as to why I asked is that can we now start doing this Purva Paksha with some principles, with some modalities? Is there a way for that? And that's the reason why how could I do a Purva Paksha of anything else, not only Rajeev Malhotra?
The second idea I would present about validating my scholarship is that I have been so strong in naming individuals that I'm opposing, quoting them, and giving my arguments in return. It behooves them to find flaws and give a response, if they have a response. It is not good enough to say, oh, we'll ignore it, hoping it will go away, because they know that the work is very solid, and they can find some typo errors and some quote here, there, whatever, but the basic argument they just have not been able to dislodge in any of my books. So it is, the point is that their stakes are high. I mean, recently there was an interview with a group of leftist scholars. All of them were saying that Rajeev Malhotra is the most dangerous scholar threatening our work over lifetime. Because I'm going deep into their sources, deep into not only, I'm not attacking the Indian leftists because they're fighting here with us and all that. I'm going to their foreign sources because the whole social sciences as taught in India is a European development. It is not one single social sciences scholar that they refer to in the UPSC exam or in the 11th grade, 12th grade kind of social sciences books is an Indian social thought. That's going to be another book of mine, a critique of Indian social sciences as an entirely Western thing. So now when I'm going to their mentors and their teachers, and I'm not going after dead people like Macaulay and Max Miller, they can't talk back because they're dead. I'm going after living people, and I'm going after the most powerful living people, not only as individuals but also the institutions they work for and the funding agencies. Now, having been so provocative in the face, the point is that if there is something to say, something wrong, they should fight back. They should. I have open invitation to Sheldon Pollack to sit down and have a conversation with me, a friendly debate with me. They are not interested. I've had the same thing with every one of the opponents. Recently, I've been corresponding with Shashi Tharoor that I want to challenge his book Why I'm a Hindu, because I feel that he's distorted certain central ideas of Hinduism, and I want to have a very nice, friendly, civilized debate, and he's not willing to accept. I have now offered this to Ramachandra Guha. So the point is,
I'm sure many in the audience would be very eager to know. I'm sure many in the audience would be very eager to know, what do you think would Sheldon Pollack do if you meet him personally now after this book?
Well, I have had a personal correspondence with him. I understand. But the correspondence gives me an insight. I mean, he says that you are criticizing me, you are attacking me, and I wrote back saying that is our tradition, and you are criticizing and attacking our Shastra. So what is wrong? There's nothing impolite, there's no threat, there's nothing vulgar, obscene, nothing wrong. No, not one sentence of impolite language I'm using against the people I quote. In fact, I go out of my way saying they are very smart, very brilliant, very hardworking, we should commend them, and it's just that their views are wrong. I'm going to tell you what's wrong with their views, but I'm not attacking them as persons. I'm not saying that they are bad human beings. I don't know their personal life and I'm not interested. I'm only looking at this as a text. So I'm doing what they would call philology. They would call philology, which means you study a text, you're not studying the personality. So I'm also doing that. Now let me, because of the interest of time, I would like to also respond to Professor Leela's very, very important question. The observation that Indians in India and in the West, the NRIs, are indirectly complicit. They're either supporting or they are ignoring. Actually, I've studied this also. And I have a lot to write on, a lot I am already writing, not published yet. I'm stratifying the Indians into categories, a taxonomy of Indians. Of course, there is one obvious category, which is the left, who are very openly about it, opposed to it. I'm not talking about that because it's very easy to define why they are against it. It's ideologically they're against it. If you talk about the people who think of themselves Hindus, spirituals, Sanatan Dharmis, Vedic people, these kind of people, the question is, why are they either supporting the other side, or they are trying to be privately supporting me but publicly they don't want to, or even publicly they're trying to be very nice guys to them. So I've looked at so many case studies. See, those who are scholars and who are privately committed to our side, it takes courage. It takes courage for such a person to say that here is this man who did not come from our tradition, and he's retired and given up everything, and now he's done something useful, and let's work with him. It takes courage, because I'm very open about saying I'm not able to do what you guys are able to do as scholars in the tradition sitting in India, and at the same time you're not able to do what I can do sitting in the West. So we should work together as a team. So from my side the offer is there. But from their side, it has been very difficult to get this collaboration for whatever reason. That is one kind of people. Another kind of people are those who privately say, Rajeev, this is great, oh wow, oh, great. So if I say, okay, can you come on the stage and we'll talk about it? No, I can't be seen. So I'm going to Bombay. We are having an event with Dr. Subramanian Swamy and I on the 8th of July. And so I have another day or two. And I sent out an invite to some of the leading industrialists in Bombay. You know all the names. And they're all Hindus, they all want to say, claim this and that, once in a while come. But as far as having a discussion with me, a discussion where they're not required to agree with me. They can disagree, they can agree, disagree, whatever it is, just a conversation. They're very reluctant because they don't know what will be the outcome in 2019 if I'm on the wrong side. So there is that also. There is this business about why some big industrialists have given a Harvard $50 million, another has given $25 million, another has given to Columbia some money, another has given some society here and there without doing due diligence. Now the terminology I use is terminology that they can't ignore because an industrialist knows the term due diligence. He does not know the term Purva Paksha, but he knows the term due diligence. And he knows that he never invests in any venture without due diligence. And due diligence is not that the person who's looking for the funding is a nice guy, he came to me, we had a nice dinner, he's very sweet and talked to me, I gave him the money. No, that is not due diligence. Due diligence is done, you get independent experts in that subject matter to give you a report of their performance. That is how due diligence is done. None of these guys who funded Indology and these kind of programs in the West have approached me for an opinion on these scholars that they're funding or anyone else to give an independent report before they write checks of millions of dollars. So what I've told them is in your own industry where you know a lot, you would never be so careless and invest in this way. But why are you doing it in a field that you don't know anything about? When you don't know anything about a field, then even more you should be doing independent due diligence to compensate for your own lack of ignorance. The fact is, there is a side agenda. Either you get on the board of this famous, prestigious institution, and then on that board you meet the movers and shakers, maybe you get dinner with Warren Buffett, or you go and have a photo op with Bill Gates, or you get some senator. So this is good for business. So you get it's a business networking. It's a very, very top level business networking which is done in a very subtle way, not in a very blatant way, where you join certain group, you become invited to the high table of very rich people where they're all worth they've given tens of millions of dollars each. And so one of the motives is they don't think they're harming our culture, they're not interested in helping it. It's a good PR. It's a very good PR to go to a Harvard and say, okay, I'll fund you $50 million to study India, and looks very good. Indian government will think you're doing a good job because they also don't know. This is part of the problem. So there are many issues about this. Why the NRIs and others are complicit. So one of it is privately they'll support, publicly they won't support. One of it is that they are very open about the fact that they are doing PR. This is public relations for them. They are investing in these kind of things. And then there is this business about wanting to be politically correct. Many of the Indians who are in high places, I live in Princeton, which is a very high-class elitist town, and the Indians around me worth a lot of money, and they are all in big shot positions, and they don't want to take on this very messy thing about defending Hindu Dharma because firstly they don't know too much about it. They will celebrate Diwali, they'll have a party, they'll have rituals, some pandit will come and do something, they don't even understand what he's done, but they want it to be done because then the children will have good influence. And the good influence is that, my children will be raised this way, they'll respect me in my old age, it's my old age security. And so I want my children to be raised with this sort of influence, whether I believe in it or not so important. So this showmanship of rituals and celebrating Hindu festivals goes on, but you cannot extract even one penny out of them to support, because they're not really thinking aligned with us when it comes to put your money where your mouth is. So I had a recent discussion with Baba Ramdev. It was in Hindi, but we have English subtitles. Some of you might have seen it. in which we are talking about why it is difficult to get support. Government should be supporting, they are not. Many of the gurus are basically building up their own organization. They are not looking at the big civilization. They are looking at their own venture, their own multinational little company that they have, which is what the gurus have turned into. So what about the general public? What about the big shots? So Baba Ramdev gives a very straight answer. He says that when he started his Patanjali, he also wanted support. And he says that the rich people are the biggest kanjus, means misers. And he said, not one of those guys willing to back me, and the very poor can't. But he says the middle class is where I got help. Middle class is where I got help. Yeah, so I'll tell you, Infinity Foundation is now successful in getting contributions from middle class people, both in India and in the US. And I would urge anyone who want to help, please help us. We need this. See, I don't need anything for myself. Let me be very clear. Before I started this 25 years ago, my guru said, make sure you are responsible for your family. You are not going to put them in danger. My wife doesn't work and my children are 13 and 10. And I wanted to make sure they are safe. So I put aside into a trust for the family that they're taken care of. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not looking for funding for myself or my family. But we decided some years ago that I'm not going to live forever. And there is a lot of demand that says you should train more people. And to train more people, you need an institution. And I want to do that in India. So we've set up Infinity Foundation India to create my successors. And this is the foundation that is doing the Swadeshi Indology conferences, writing books and doing all kinds of activities. We have about 8 or 10 people on the payroll right now, full time. We want to be able to get more people, give them stipends, scholars. So the funding we need is for this kind of work here. That is where we need the funding. It is not for me, but we need it for the institution, which is a NGO with the 80G, 12A, all the things that you need for tax exemption. It's an independent NGO for which we need the funding. So I want to say that while there is lot of NRIs and Indians who are not helping, and all particularly the big people in big high places, they have too much to lose, they don't want to be associated, they don't want to stick their neck out over some controversial thing like Hinduism, a controversial thing. It's very strange, it's become a controversial thing. To support Hinduism is a controversial thing. This is how serious it is. So while there is that going on, I also want to thank those of you who are helping us as ordinary people. From whatever you can support, whatever level you can give us, we are getting help and we are very grateful for that. Thank you.
We are running short of time.
Short question?
Yeah, let us ask a short question.
Oh, okay, one short question.
Rajeev ji, you have mentioned how difficult it is for ordinary Indians, especially Sanskrit scholars, to go through and understand the complicated language in which they have interpreted, misinterpreted, misguided Sanskrit texts. So, in this context, why don't we throw a challenge at them that all those Western Indologists, especially those who are studying Sanskrit and making a critic of Sanskrit texts and Sanskrit theories, do it in Sanskrit with our traditional scholars.
Great.
It's they should do, because we were introduced to English during the same time as they were introduced to Sanskrit, and most of us have mastered, and we have creative writing in English. I don't mean me, but we have creative writers in English, but do they have creative writers in Sanskrit? So their understanding, has any Western scholar written a Mahakavya, even a Kavya of a Khanda Kavya? I don't think so. So, I think this should be posed as a challenge for them and make it difficult for them.
Yeah. In fact, our government loves to give great honors to some kind of scholars of that sort who are Sanskrit scholars, but they've never written anything in Sanskrit, and most of them can't even speak properly, they pronounce properly. So maybe we have to start this kind of a ideal Sanskrit,